Elite Facts presents
9 wacky conspiracy theories from weird corners of the web.
9.
Dinosaurs helped build the pyramids. When you hear the pyramids pop up on a list of conspiracy theories, you probably expect it to be something about how aliens built them with tractor beams, or how they were actually spaceship refueling stations. It turns out all of those are very wrong because the pyramids were actually built using dinosaurs, allegedly anyway. Maybe this is more of a filling in the blanks of history with supposed new evidence than it is an actual conspiracy theory, but it aims to shed new light on how the ancient Egyptians moved the heavy stones to build the pyramids. An Egyptologist named Nabir ibn al-Samud supposedly uncovered several papyrus scrolls and stone tablets from about 3500 BC that apparently depict dinosaurs in ancient Egypt. Considering this discovery, in addition to references to so-called god beasts in ancient Egyptian writings and the carvings of fantastical creatures, al-Samud and his associates have concluded that dinosaurs coexisted with humans and were used like heavy-duty horses or elephants to assist with the construction of great ancient works like the pyramids. We're sure we're not currently all living in the Flintstones universe, but given humanity's history of ingenuity in taming wild beasts, it's currently possible ancient Egyptians could have tamed dinosaurs. This is, however, only a realistic possibility if you ignore all the paleontological evidence telling us that dinosaurs died out some 65 million years ago, and that humans came into being some 200,000 years ago at the earliest.
8.
Israeli mind control sharks. With a shift to modern Egypt now, you may have heard about a number of shark attacks on tourists in the Red Sea resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh. Back in December of 2010, there were 5 shark attacks over the course of 6 days in that resort town that saw 1 tourist killed and several severely injured. Marine biologists suggest that these attacks were likely because of a combination of overfishing, unseasonably warm weather, and the dumping of sheep carcasses at sea. This may sound like a fairly rational answer, but after a diver found a GPS tracking device on one of the sharks responsible for the attacks, opinions on what was causing the attacks changed. A supposed famous diver called Captain Mustafa Ismail suggested that this device was not a GPS tracking device, but was actually a GPS guidance device. Why would a shark need GPS guidance? Well, according to Captain Mustafa, it was because of a plot by Israeli secret agents. He suggested the sharks were being deployed 228 kilometers away in Eilat at the top of the Gulf of Aqaba, and then guided into the tourist-filled Egyptian waters. The governor of South Sinai added his own voice to the debate about the shark attack, specifically blaming Israeli Mossad agents who were trying to destabilize Egypt's tourist trade.
7.
The Queen of England is a cannibal. The British royal family certainly are a fancy bunch with a whole lot of money to spend, and you'd no doubt expect them to dine on the finest of foods. Perhaps they'd have caviar or roast swan served with a cloudberry sauce. Well, according to various cultural historians, commentators, and websites, the royals' favorite food is actually the flesh of humans. The exiled cultural philosopher Hubert Humdinger has accused the queen of being violently vibrant, and that despite her age is packed with more energy than the sun. His explanation was the rather blunt, she must be a cannibal, adding that the only way that she could have so much energy would be through the consumption of human flesh. Humdinger also added that on top of the cannibalism, the royals also engage in satanic rituals. One story that supports Humdinger's claims alleges that an electrician was once called to fix some faulty wiring in the palace kitchen. After fixing the wiring behind the freezer, he needed to make sure the freezer was working correctly and found some flayed strips of a strange meat strung out like bacon inside. According to some policemen assigned to watch over the electrician, they investigated the freezer with him and found a human forearm and part of a leg. The credibility of this story is very questionable to say the least, but the truth is that there are plenty of people out there who believe that the Queen is part of a long-running dynasty of cannibals.
6.
Louis Tomlinson's baby is a hoax. This crazy theory sounds like some bizarre, niche fan fiction you might find a link to on Tumblr, which, funny enough, is where it actually originates from. Unless you've spent the last 7 years living in rural Siberia without any communication to the outside world, you're probably well aware of the boy band One Direction. If you know who they are, there is also a good possibility you've had to suffer the dramas created by their obsessive fan base. This fan base is, not surprisingly, responsible for this conspiracy theory. In January of 2016, band member Louis Tomlinson became a father when he welcomed his son Freddie into the world. So far, Tomlinson is apparently enjoying fatherhood and is looking forward to more kids in the future. But according to this Tumblr blog, The Truth About One Direction, it's all actually an elaborate hoax. The fatherhood thing and the newborn son story are apparently all a facade, created by the 1D PR team to cover up the fact that Louis Tomlinson is actually in a relationship with fellow bandmate Harry Styles. The fandom, furious that one of their precious sexy singing snowflakes should ever become a dad, termed the whole thing Babygate and came up with the sexiest explanation they could. Brianna Jungwirth, the young mother of Tomlinson's baby, was forced to defend her child's reality against the oncoming internet storm of so-called Larry shippers when the news first broke. The storm has since died down, but there are many fans still lurking around the internet with their theories, many probably overly contemplating the band's current hiatus.
5.
Saddam Hussein was building a supercomputer from PS2s. If we were worth $2 billion like Saddam Hussein was back in 2003, we might be tempted to indulge and spend a lot of money on a hobby like gaming. Saddam Hussein apparently spent his wealth in exactly that area, but not for the intended purpose. Back in 2000, it surfaced in an article published on WorldNetDaily.com that the FBI and the U.S. Customs Service were investigating reports that Saddam Hussein had bought up to as many as 4,000 PlayStation 2 game consoles. This was not an attempt to help the Iraqi Republican Guard kick back and relax with some Simpsons road rage, but instead it was part of Saddam's WMD master plan. World News Today suggested that the CPUs of the PS2 were remarkably powerful, with graphical capabilities years beyond their time. Saddam's intentions were to have the thousands of PS2s jury-rigged together to harness their collective processing power to make a budget military supercomputer. Suggested applications of the supercomputer included running missile ballistic calculations, working out nuclear weapon yields, and even controlling UAVs. As crazy as all this sounds, towards the end of the U.S. occupation of Iraq, the U.S. forces were actually using Xbox 360 controllers to pilot drones. And in 2010, the U.S. Air Force had connected 1,760 PlayStation 3s into a supercomputer designed to process high-res satellite images.
4.
Saddam's Stargate. While we're on the subject of Saddam Hussein, it turns out that the real reason behind the Iraq War apparently had something to do with Stargates. Most conspiracy theorists will say it had something to do with the price of oil, but according to Dr. Michael E. Salla, it was to stop Saddam from allowing a race of ancient aliens into the world. Salla's theory goes that Saddam Hussein was actually the reincarnation of the ancient Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar intended to use a Stargate to allow the race of Mesopotamian star gods known as the Anunnaki to invade Earth and take over. The Anunnaki had apparently left the Stargate on Earth way back in 1700 BC. If you pay attention to conspiracy and ancient alien theorists, you probably know the Anunnaki as the Mesopotamian gods and the go-to lizard men from outer space you find at the root of most impossible builds or New World Order theories. The invasion of Iraq in 2003 was therefore an effort to prevent Saddam's star god plans. Given that we're not currently bowing down to ancient space beings, the plan must have worked. The Stargate was allegedly located in the ruins of the ancient city of Ur, or possibly in the center of Baghdad itself, in one of Hussein's palaces. Who knows, perhaps Saddam meant to control the Stargate systems with 4,000 PS2s.
3.
Stephen King killed John Lennon. The writer Stephen King is famous for many great novels, often ones with a bit of mystery in them, like how it is someone could put up a poster over a tunnel entrance from the inside. But there is one mystery of his that you're probably not even aware is an actual mystery. Did Stephen King kill John Lennon? History currently has it recorded that the musician John Lennon was shot dead on the doorstep of his New York City residence, the Dakota apartment building, by a crazed fan named Mark David Chapman. Stephen Lightfoot of the site LennonMurderTruth.com begs to differ. He suggests that Chapman was a government patsy, a well-chosen lookalike of the real killer, author Stephen King. Lightfoot even claims that King sent him a letter of confession under a pseudonym, with King's handwriting giving him away. His novels are also said to hint at his involvement in the murder. Why would Stephen King want to kill John Lennon? Well, apparently he was a government assassin acting on behalf of the whims of Presidents Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. It's well known that Lennon's talk of peace and love really grated on Nixon, who had previously tried to get him deported. When this failed, Nixon's next plan was to apparently straight-up assassinate the former Beatle. The motives are allegedly outlined in Nixon's The Real War book, which then recently elected Reagan was apparently pictured with on the day of the murder.
2,
The Beatles never existed. Perhaps the murder of John Lennon actually had nothing to do with Stephen King because John Lennon never actually existed. Most Beatles-related conspiracy theories usually have something to do with how Paul McCartney died in a moped accident and was replaced with a look-alike. This theory from the website TheBeatlesNeverExisted.com suggests something a bit more extreme, which you've probably figured out just from the website name. The site suggests that the Beatles, as they were presented to the world, never actually existed. Over the course of the Beatles' dominance, members of the band were replaced with lookalikes several times. The theory points to height discrepancies between members of the band in photographs and TV appearances over the course of their career, as well as other things like differences in the shapes of eyebrows, or Paul's replacements making use of fake earlobes. Ringo Starr's face changing over the course of his career is apparently another example of how he is several different people. This, of course, ignores the fact that a person's appearance changes with age, especially when leading a rock star lifestyle. The reason for using multiple Beatles was so that the grueling performance schedules and recording sessions could all be met, and that members' appearances could be minutely tailored to meet the ideal standards of different cultures around the world. Who would go to such lengths? Well, the website's founder variously accuses a Jewish cabal, Jesuits, and hippies, as well as an off-world intelligence controlling the international banking cartels.
1,
Finland doesn't exist. Ah, Finland, the land of swampy forests, moomims, heavy metal, and a language with a super complex grammatical structure. Nestled in the far north of Europe between Sweden and Russia, Finland has officially existed as an independent state since December 1917 and enjoys high incomes, a strong welfare system, and has regularly come out on top in global rankings in scientific knowledge. According to one theory on the internet, this is all a bunch of lies. All of it. Finland doesn't even exist. Not only does it not exist as a country, it doesn't even exist as a landmass. The landmass we think of as Finland is actually a large open sea that Russia gifted to Japan to use for fishing. Finland, according to the theory, is actually an invention of Russia and Japan to protect Japanese fishing rights created sometime between 1920 and 1960. The Trans-Siberian Railway was constructed to transport the fish across Russia to Japan, disguised as Nokia products, with Russia taking a cut of the profit. The governments of the rest of the world went along with this wacky plan so as not to annoy the powerhouse that is Russia. So-called Finnish towns are actually in parts of Sweden, Estonia, and northwest Russia, with the capital Helsinki being in Sweden. The Finnish people have unknowingly been part of the conspiracy, growing up in Finnish zones of those countries. Left to their own devices in those zones, they developed their own cultural identity. GPS mapping and satellite imagery have all been altered to show the Finnish landmass, hiding the truth from those who believe they've traveled to Finland. The conspiracy theory cites similarities between the Finnish language and Japanese to further suggest it was a Russia-Japanese creation, and that Finland gets its name because of the plentiful amount of fish, which of course have fins.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.